let's talk to Nick. Pronouns he, him, calling in from nipple crust.
Oh no.
It's the first thing that came to my mind, and I hated it. It's what else could NC possibly mean? And Nick says he would like to talk about the foundations of science and religion, and that our tests are only so accurate compared to how long religion has been around. Nick is a theist, and it seems like that's the angle he's taken. Nick, you're on the line with Forrest and Morticia. How are you doing today?
Hey, how y'all doing? Forrest and Morticia. I'm doing all right.
I've never had a bad day, man. So tell me what exactly you're calling about.
Well, today I've heard you talking about like anti-vaxxers, and it just makes me. I mean, that's something we could talk about, maybe.
Anti-vax, okay.
Sure. I am anti-COVID vax, for example.
Why?
I do not see it as a vaccine.
Okay, can you give me the definition of the word vaccine?
I could give you the modern definition, but I would rather go by the original definition.
What's the original definition?
I didn't have that pulled up, but I just talking about that, I know
you said you don't. You said that you don't see it as a vaccine. So, what would constitute a vaccine in your mind?
It would be the dead version of the virus that is implanted. You know, typically it's going to be implanted into somebody.
Okay, so you know that that's not what all vaccines are. Even without the COVID vaccine, there are plenty of vaccines that do not use dead viruses to simulate an antigen response.
Okay, I still wouldn't classify those as vaccines.
Okay, but that is what it is. So a vaccine is not just a dead virus. There are vaccines for bacteria as well, if I remember correctly. Just it's rare, much rarer, but like it is happening. And it is not just for a virus. It is a dead or weakened or even just a piece of or a causative agent of any part of this pathogen, whatever that pathogen may be. It is a dead form of it, a weakened form of it, a piece of it, a causative agent, whatever it is that allows your body to see it as an antigen and develop antibodies. That is the whole point of any kind of a vaccine.
But that's widening the definition, and I do not agree with that process.
Not at all. Not at all. If you take all that out, you have the exact same thing. It is something that initiates some sort of antigen deliberately put into the body to trigger an immune response. That is what a vaccine is. An antigen deliberately inserted into the body to trigger an immune response that allows your body to develop antibodies. That is, simply put, what any vaccine is.
Well, I guess the fundamental thing behind what you would call like an anti-vax claim is just that I think that in what we follow and what we use as science practically, I think that sometimes it's wrong. And over time, like you said, that's what makes it good because there's multiple attempts or whatever. But when you stick to it so religiously, you'll go for the wrong thing before it's right.
I have a completely different question. Morticia, do you have something about what we're talking about so far before I completely change where we're at?
I just want to share some information with Nick because I think he's operating on a fundamental misunderstanding of what a vaccine is. So as Forrest pointed out, not all vaccines are pieces or like a dead version of a virus. We have vaccines that are weakened pathogens. So the pathogen isn't fully dead, but it's in a weakened state to where it cannot infect you.
That's what the COVID
viruses and bacteria. But in addition to that, we also have like conjugate vaccines. So we have vaccines that do not contain a virus. They do not contain a bacteria. They contain a piece off of that bacteria's like cell membrane, for example. Maybe it's a specific protein or a polysaccharide, and that's what sets off our immune response. So this definition of a vaccine that you're operating on, where you're saying, well, it's a dead virus or it's a dead bacteria, and that's why the COVID vaccine isn't a vaccine. If you're operating on that definition,
no. That's not
several
what I'm
other vaccines would also not be vaccines by your metric, because we have vaccines that predate the COVID vaccine that are not a weakened or a dead pathogen, virus or bacteria, that are just like pieces off of that virus, pieces off of that bacteria that are not a full pathogen.
The reason why I disagree with the COVID vaccine is because it's synthetic.
It's because it's what?
Because it's what?
The virus that's in the COVID vaccine is synthetic. There's no version.
There is no virus. There is no virus in the COVID vaccine. There is no virus in the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, we've added our own, like, basically chemical mix to it. I just don't agree with it.
It's an mRNA vaccine. It doesn't contain a virus. Nick, it contains mRNA, not a virus.
Yes, the messenger RNA. Yeah.
So it doesn't contain a virus. It doesn't contain a virus. It contains the instructions to build a protein that is found on the virus. And your body doesn't naturally contain that protein. So when your body makes the protein using the instructions you just gave it, and then says, what the fuck is this protein I just made? It then develops antibodies for that protein.
Yeah.
So that way, when the actual virus is introduced to your body and it's covered in those proteins, your body says, hey, I recognize those proteins. They were assholes before. And then it kills the viruses.
Yeah, in theory, that's what it should do.
No, that is the definition of a vaccine.
That is what it does. It's not a matter of
all people, we get different results.
We get
results where people do not develop those antigens, and that's why they have to fight COVID multiple times. We get scenarios where people have.
That's not how that works. And let me ask you a question, Nick.
In theory, perfectly it would work like that, but it doesn't always work like that in reality.
Right. So two things. Number one, no medicine works perfectly every single time. None. Not a single one.
Correct.
No medicine does not have a rate at which it doesn't work properly. No medicine does not have a rate at which it actually causes some harm. No medicine comes without risk. No medicine whatsoever has these things. You are at an extremely high risk if you take Tylenol. It has been said by scientists that I have been trained under that if Tylenol were invented today, there's no way you would take it without a prescription, because Tylenol causes lots of death. Every year people die because of Tylenol.
Yeah.
And yet it's around because we understand that every single medicine comes with risk of ineffectivity and of harm. The COVID vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, is by comparison. I am still speaking, sir. I am still speaking, sir. By comparison, this COVID vaccine is remarkably safe and monumentally effective.
How do we know that? How do we know that it's safe when it's just being like the test? This is the test run. Like, it doesn't have a track record to go by. We're only going off of theoretical, like what it should.
No, it is not.
In theory, we're not really operating off of. Well, you could say, for example, that penicillin is very safe because
I just find it really funny how he's sitting here claiming, well, we don't know. I'm pretty sure it's been around for around 4 years now. I'm pretty sure.
Nothing in the span of humanity. Genetically, that's nothing to our genes.
At the very minimum, two things, Nick. Number one, at the very minimum, we have vaccinated well over half of the people on the entire planet with this vaccine. If there was a problem with it, over 4 billion people as your test sample, you would fucking notice something. Right? Most of the time, these test samples involve maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, maybe you can get something like 4 billion people taking this medicine, and we don't have a significant rash of problems, then that tells me it's very fucking effective. And the second thing that I wanted to ask you, what the fuck did what you just say mean when you said nothing for our genetics?
I just meant that the 4-year time span that we've been testing COVID on the population is nothing in the scope of like what our genetics are made of and what our antibodies that we naturally develop, like the things that make us strong from the millions of years that we've been since an amoeba from a whatever, like this whole time, that's all stacked.
That has
like, as tests for what works and what doesn't. For humanity.
Unless you're talking about innate immunity, that has nothing to do with genetics. You understand there's a difference between innate immunity and then like the immunity that you develop, right? The innate immunity being what you're born with in terms of like these pathogens literally cannot possibly infect you, versus the developed artificial immunity that comes along with being, actually you could break that further down with natural immunity being you're infected by a pathogen and you develop antibodies while effectively fighting off that pathogen. And then artificial immunity being you never have to suffer through infection. You are given the opportunity through vaccination to develop antibodies before you were infected. So you're able to fight this thing off without being at risk of being harmed by it. You understand how there's a major difference there, and none of that has anything to do with our genetics as a population?
Yeah, I do. And for that reason, I like the comparison of like a vaccine to Tylenol, for example. If it was like put out as a product among other products and people it wasn't forced, like people lost their jobs and stuff like that. It affected people in more ways than just the possible genetic or lifestyle ramifications. And I know that sounds like a large gap, but I believe in epigenetics, so maybe that will help bridge some of the gaps in like how I'm talking.
Okay, so here let me just try something with you really quick. Here I just found a study. This is one study saying that there were, over the course of the entire run of the COVID vaccine, 56,000 emergency room department visits, 2,600 hospitalizations, and 500 deaths as the result of the COVID vaccine. Do you think that that is a reason to say we shouldn't trust it and we should pull it?
No. Not that we should pull it. No.
But do you think that's a reason? Do you think that's a reason to not trust it?
It adds. I have other reasons not to trust it, but it does. Okay. It does add to the fact that I can't just go along with it.
Those stats, I lied to you. I'm sorry. I apologize. I usually am pretty quick about it. Those stats are not for the COVID vaccine. Those are the stats for Tylenol, and that is not in 4 years. That is every year. Every single year, Tylenol causes 56,000 emergency room visits, 2,600 hospitals, and 5,000 deaths. It is one of the most common causes of liver transplants is acetaminophen toxicity.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a reason for us not to trust Tylenol, Nick?
Yes. I don't think everybody should take Tylenol. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't accept
no, because there are
that's the thing.
Because there are hundreds of millions. There are hundreds of millions of people.
The official told me to follow, but I started to critically
there are hundreds of millions of people a day that take fucking Tylenol. And we're talking about 500 deaths a year. That is a remarkably safe thing. And the COVID vaccine has caused significantly less harm than that and saved, not an exaggeration, billions of lives.
What do we mean by that, though? So, hold up. It's caused less harm. I'm guessing there must be a study that you would cite to say that, like we've studied the populations who have taken the vaccines and the effects on their lives. Because it may not be death. It may just be long-term symptoms that completely alter the way they have to live. That also will make it unsafe. Not in a sense of, again, lethality, but yeah, I wouldn't.
I have a thing about that.
I wouldn't want to deteriorate my lifestyle for that.
Because I have a totally different thing that I want to answer. And again, I don't want to derail things if you have something about what we're on right now.
I just think that it's interesting how with these points that Nick keeps bringing up, and I put points in quotations here, where it's, well, what if, what if so many people are getting sick and it's these lifelong symptoms, and what if you don't, it sounds like you don't have hard reason to believe that. You are wondering if it is true. That there by itself makes me suspicious of your intentions and what line of reasoning has brought you to that conclusion.
That I should question the efficacy or the safety of the COVID vaccine?
There is nothing wrong.
You're questioning that?
There's nothing wrong with questioning things. I do not think that it is wrong to be critical of the world around you and to ask questions. However, you are not the only person that has had these questions. There are 8 billion of us on the planet. A lot of those 8 billion people are scientists and doctors and epidemiologists and public health professionals who have asked these same questions. And so they've done an insane amount of rigorous scientific research where they have compiled millions of people and looked at millions of people who have taken the vaccine and tracked their health over the course of weeks, months, even years. And they have found the answers to these questions you are asking. And the answers are the COVID vaccines are phenomenally safe, and there is very little risk of adverse health events, especially in comparison to the benefit of protecting you not only from COVID, but from long COVID, from hospitalization of COVID, and all of the health problems that come along with that. So when I am presenting you with this information, what does that make you think? How do you respond to that?
I will respond to that just by saying that I have multiple, I guess you say, sources for my evidence. I didn't want to start with anecdotal evidence because I do know that is weak. But I do have anecdotal experience as well from people around me that suffer from COVID vaccine complications. And I don't want to say that like I am against vaccines altogether. I think that I just don't like how it's forced on you to believe in the sciences, similar to how churches will ask you to believe in the Bible. Like, it's very hypocritical to me to think that like I'm not supposed to think like that about religion, but I am supposed to just believe in all these genius scientists. And I'm not doubting that there are many very talented and educated scientists. I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying that that's not even they don't get it all right. Even they sometimes when they're observing things, they fuck up or mess up. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just gonna ask you for a second, just to be honest with both us and yourself for a second. Why comparing science to religion and saying that you have to trust these scientists the way you trust the Bible. Do you understand why that's dumb as all hell to say? And that's a weak talking point? Or do you actually think that we are asking you to trust science the same way that a preacher would ask you to trust the Bible? Do you actually think that? Or do you understand that that's a major hyperbole on your part?
I think it's a difference of degree, and I do not think it's a hyperbole. I think it's a difference of degree, which goes back to why I think that religion is the first science.
That tells me a lot about where we're coming from here. Because yes, religion was the first attempt at science. It is also our worst attempt at science. That's why, say, for example, the Bible is so goddamn wrong about fucking everything. Because it was just a bunch of semi-literate goat herders in Palestine writing down what they thought the universe was, and they were very wrong, and no one's surprised. Today, we rely on evidence and peer review to make sure that we actually know what we think we think.
So that it is better. I get it.
It is much better.
I get it. I see
and
it
so
like
when
that.
we talk
like
about science, when it comes... And so when it comes around to this, when it comes around to vaccines, when it comes around to the age of the earth, when it comes around to evolution, when it comes around to the Big Bang, when it comes around to modern biomedical sciences, when it comes around to anything with science today, it is nothing like the Bible or like preachers that tell you to believe like a child believes and just take my word for it. You can actually go look it up yourself. You can get training in this area to learn about it yourself. You can learn how this stuff works. And most importantly, these scientists are actually double checking with each other. Other experts in the field are working together to make sure that this stuff works. If you have ever been to grad school, 80% of a graduate level education is reading what the modern science is and talking about why it's wrong, and talking about criticizing other scientists, criticizing other papers, criticizing publications, and trying to do them better. So, like, it sounds to me like you have a very limited understanding of what science actually is, and this big, broad brush understanding
I have a bachelor of
how this
science.
shit works.
It's not that.
Oh, you have a bachelor's of science. What kind of science?
Last time too.
What kind of science?
Audio science.
Audio science.
I know.
What does that mean?
Yes. That means anything having to do with sound. Just being able to manipulate sound, observe sound. And
is it a physics?
And
is it physics-based, biomedical-based?
Read graphs and things like that. I'm sorry?
Is it physics-based or biomedical-based? Or is it electrical engineering-based? Physics-based.
Well,
okay.
Both, but I actually have a music production degree, which gives me access to both. But yeah.
Is that the only degree, or is that a separate degree?
No, that's a separate degree. Audio. Okay. So audio engineering would just be the physics side of it, and then just the electrical side of it, and then the music production is the physical and the electrical.
So you have a bachelor's level education in science that isn't biology, which means you have taken a lot of very broad classes where you are instructed on a thing, hopefully given some background about it. That's usually the case. Have you had to do literature review as a part of any of that, as a part of your undergraduate education, where you were required to take any lit review classes? Okay, so then you do understand why what you said is bullshit, and why science is about questioning each other and working forward for a better future, not just blindly believing the dogma and the faith of what we say. If you've taken a lit review class, then you understand why that's wrong.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at about some of the scientists and some of the people that come off as arrogant to the religious people in science, like those scientists that are like that come off to normal people. I don't say normal, but religious people like that. I think that's exactly why. Like I disagree with the belief part of it. Like both. I can observe things to be true, but to then hold them as true because other people said it's also true, that's the part. The other part, it's that part. Like, I'm trying to...
I have a totally different line of questioning, and I want to ask...
Like, I participate in science, but I'm still skeptical. And that's because nobody I've met, even the masters of different various fields of science, none of them are like all knowing. They still have questions. So why should I put that kind of belief into people who still have those questions?
Because that's called being fucking honest, Nick. That's called honesty. I have 2 master's degrees focused around biology. I don't know more about biology than I do. There's so many more questions that I have than answers. I don't know a lot of stuff because I'm honest enough to say it. If I was sitting up here telling you I had any number of any level of degrees, and I followed that up by saying I know everything there is to know about biology, you should not trust me at all. That would mean that I am a liar, a charlatan, a grifter, a piece of shit who is more full of himself than interested in the truth. People don't know stuff because we're not deities. We are scientists, and we're honest about what we don't know. And every time you learn something in science, it should, if you're a good scientist, give you 2 questions. Every one answer you get should give you 2 questions. Otherwise, you're not paying enough attention. That is the way science has always been. And you are using that desire for knowledge, the thing that has gotten civilization to the point where you can call my dumbass on the internet and saying that it isn't reliable because we don't know everything. How are you cool with that?
No, like, it's the because part. No, I'm just saying they're both true. It's both true that the science is somewhat reliable and somewhat unreliable. And for that reason, I don't like the idea of basically forcing people. It wasn't a 1984 type of force us, but it was socially and just culturally enforced. And I just don't agree with that. You know, like
I think we've kind of hit a point here where we're just talking in circles, where it's like Morticia and I are trying like hell to get you to understand that this is about questioning everything, assuming nothing, following the evidence wherever it leads, only moving forward with an idea when you fail to disprove it, never accepting anything, only failing to reject ideas, and then you move forward. Understanding the skeptical worldview, especially from a biomedical perspective, where it's incredibly important to have that kind of evidence. And you're coming in here with a background in music and sound design and maybe some physics training by your claim, and trying to throw out the science that is saving millions of lives around the world. Morticia, do you have anything left for Nick? Because I have one more thing that I want to...
I'm not trying to throw it out.
I just have one question for Nick. You said that your background is in, sound design, music, audio, and physics, and you are using your background in that to kind of cast judgment or cast projection of ulterior motives onto biomedical scientists, and assuming that the entire world of biomedical scientists and epidemiologists and doctors who have done all of the work behind this vaccine and investigated it and found over and over and over and over and over again that it is very effective and that it is safe, and that it, like, when it comes to risk versus benefit, it has a very low risk. It carries a very low risk in comparison to the benefits that it carries. I'm just wondering if you carry that same air of skepticism, as you call it, for your own field. Do you approach matters of audio and design and physics with the same air of like, everyone is lying, only I know the truth, even though, the entire world has come to a point of consensus on this position where I can read the data, I can read the literature, and I can see that millions of people have found the same conclusion over and over again? Do you carry that same air with you into your field? Because I feel like you said the answer is yes, but I have my own suspicions about whether or not that's actually true.
I mean, you skewed it a lot, but essentially, yeah.
Do you have an example?
So I believe that, the common sentiment in music is that it's all about entertainment, and that it doesn't catch. How should I say it? A lot of people don't want to believe that music affects the culture, or it affects the mentality of a society. And I'm extremely skeptical of that, because I have seen the impact of this science on different populations. And I disagree with that entirely, but it does make me, I have to keep my mouth closed around a lot of people. Yeah.
No, you don't. If you were a scientist, you would open that mouth right up and you'd have some research to back up what you're saying. Nick, I have one last question for you. Do you think that the tetanus, pertussis, and diphtheria vaccines are real vaccines and that they are safe and effective?
I don't know the second two, the latter two, but the
diphtheria
vaccine, I believe that's a vaccine.
Okay, the pertussis and diphtheria are ones that are very commonly given to children, especially infants. The Tdap, the booster shot, is pertussis and diphtheria. Pertussis is whooping cough. Diphtheria. So you do think that those are all safe, effective vaccines?
I mean, yeah, I think they're effective. I think they're all effective.
But they are vaccines, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, all three of those are bacteriological vaccines, which by your definition are not real vaccines. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. You have a political opinion that you're trying to turn into a scientific opinion, and that's the truth. And to speak in audiological terms, the truth hurts. Get it? That's an audio joke. Take care, Nick. We're going to go on to the next one. Bye-bye. By the by, for Nick and people like Nick who talk about, well, the COVID vaccine could have long-term side effects. You know what else has long-term major side effects? Fucking COVID.
Yeah.
I went off screen for a second while he was on because I grabbed this paper, which I was just reading for a class. I'm doing this neuroscience class right now. And we were talking about like clinical stuff about specifically we're in the basal ganglia. And this is a paper here. 14-year-old boy with multiple trauma and bilateral basal ganglia hemorrhage due to COVID-19 infection. So this is a case report of a 14-year-old kid in Iran who got fucking COVID and had a major bilateral brain hemorrhage in the part of your brain that controls like how your brain can even influence your body in the first place. I guarantee you that any vaccine this kid took would have been a lot safer, even if there was some sort of an effect from it, wouldn't have caused this kind of trauma. And what I don't think people like Nick get is just how much incredible, unbelievable, remarkable, and I'm not saying bad, but just unbelievable amounts of privilege they have to live in this world where they are protected by modern biomedical sciences, that they can now cast aspersions against it because they don't have a concept of how horrible life would be without it. And like that, to me, that is poetic and sad.
Yes. I have held for a long time that, like many other viruses, COVID is going to wreak absolutely just devastating long-term damage on the human population. We see it with so many other viruses where Epstein-Barr, for an example, 90% of the adult population is seropositive for Epstein-Barr. It can be completely asymptomatic or it can give you cancer, and it can cause devastating health outcomes 20, 30, 40 years after you get infected. Viruses aren't something to be approached with this cavalier attitude. We should take them seriously, and we should hold an appropriate amount of respect for them because they can absolutely fuck you up. COVID or any other virus for that matter. Yeah.
And people, I hate the line where it's like, oh, well, it's got like this 98% survival. Survival doesn't mean thriving, first of all. Long-term side effects, life-altering side effects, debilitating side effects that last for the rest of your life, those are survival as well. You certainly don't fucking want them. People survived polio all the time and were in an iron lung or a wheelchair. Doesn't mean that it's something we shouldn't be treating and vaccinating. And also, fuck you to 2%, I guess. Oh, these weak people, these old people, they'll die off. That's Nazi shit. Don't do that. We're supposed to be protecting everybody, right? That's the point. Like, it disgusts me so much.
Wow, that was a great clip we just watched. Hey, Eve, what should the people do now?
Leave a comment, click like, subscribe, patreon.com/ does that say call the line?
Yeah. But if you could have paid, we could just make it a little more natural. On the next clip, the outro will be much better.